Sonic Prime just released its first season on Netflix, and while I've been out of the Sonic fandom ever since '06, I found it surprisingly great. While it wasn't something I personally loved, I could easily see this becoming the new fan favorite Sonic cartoon, and today I want to talk about all of the big differences between this new show and the games. As most of you know, the story of Sonic Prime is about Sonic traveling to many different dimensions as he tries to find his way back home, to the Prime dimension if you will. This all happened because Dr. Eggman uncovering a paradox prism, a sort of magic stone that gets shattered by Sonic, and because of that, seems to create a series of worlds where he never existed. In addition to Sonic not existing, other great changes can occur, such as one dimension being the home of 5 evil Eggmans who have conquered the Green Hill Zone and turned it into a steampunk dystopia. This world serves as a sort of second primary home to Sonic for the series, with it being about him traveling to other dimensions to get home, but mostly returning to the steampunk world. In addition to this Eggman world, we also see the island in more tropical forms, one in which Amy has become a ruthless warrior, and another where they all follow Knuckles as a pirate captain. Now, I loved classic Sonic from when I was a really little kid, as well as the adventure-era games from when I got a bit older, and neither really felt better than the other to me. While I didn't love Sonic Heroes or the standalone Shadow game, both were enjoyable at the very least because the characters were not just consistent with before, but were really built upon. For a while, Sonic games became about trying to make the cast of characters go deeper, instead of just into new one-off adventures. It was around Sonic 06 that some major changes happened to the franchise, with the original creator of Sonic stepping down and leaving, and since then, the real story of the games is mostly not important, and the characters have become whatever they need to be in order to force themselves into the plot. Most people notice Knuckles as the biggest example of this. Classic Sonic and even the Adventure era are somewhat defined by Knuckles and his elaborate backstory. Sonic 3 introduced him as the Guardian of Angel Island, a floating island in the sky held up by a magic emerald called the Master Emerald. This continued into Sonic and Knuckles, and the Master Emerald became a key point in Sonic Adventure as well, with Eggman shattering it to release a water god inside that became the primary villain in the game. Even in Sonic Adventure 2, Knuckles' Master Emerald was shattered to have a reason for him to get off the island, and again, it was a major part in saving the day. Since then, Knuckles' origins have been largely ignored, making him just a random sidekick who likes to help Sonic for no real reason. Many games simply ignore his backstory, but in Sonic Prime, there's a 2D sprite scene that indicates the entirety of Sonic 3 and Knuckles is canon to the series, but it raises the question of why Knuckles is just hanging around the Green Hill Zone. Other shows like Sonic Boom rewrote Knuckles to just be an idiot who hangs out with Sonic, and even with the supposed Angel Island existing in Sonic Prime, Knuckles is more or less the same here. Maybe not nearly as dumb as in Sonic Boom, but if anything, it just makes him entirely devoid of any real personality. What's worse is Knuckles doesn't need an elaborate Angel Island backstory that controls the narrative to work. The Sonic OVA is perhaps the greatest example of Knuckles being adapted I have ever seen, turning him to just a treasure hunter who happens to get wrapped up in Sonic's adventure. It allows him to be his own character and not just a sidekick to Sonic. Now, Amy's a fun character who never had much depth, but she didn't really need it. Early games had her chasing Sonic, but in Sonic Adventure, she managed to get her own story. Sonic normally runs from Amy, whether it's because he hates her or because he secretly loves her, depending on what game you are playing or which cartoon you're watching, but here she is presented as the heart of the group, which is a really weird change to me. When Sonic first jumps through the Shatterverse, he sees flashes of his friends saying things, with Amy indicating she's the one who brings the team together in this iteration. It just seems a bit odd. Perhaps the weirdest example of this is Rouge, who was such a fun last-minute addition to Sonic Adventure 2, where she was put in before the release to be a dark character paralleling Knuckles. In the original game, she is a treasure hunter obsessed with jewels, which leaned really well into her sexy persona. What was great about her was she had so many things going for her, and she wasn't even introduced as the main villain in this game, as that was Shadow. She was a government spy, she was a treasure hunter, and she had no problem flaunting herself as part of her act. Because Sonic is aiming more and more towards kids, this TV series removes the lusty personality and reduces her to yet another sidekick to Sonic. Out of all the characters to choose, Rouge seems like a great option to be part of Sonic's team, and she has a lot of potential, but here she is mostly devoid of personality and just serves to be that new fifth member. Tails is perhaps the most faithful of the characters, though like with the others, we see very little of him, and instead focus more on the Tails from Dimension 2, who we can call 9 because of his 9 robotic tails that he has. What was really fun though was seeing Sonic and Tails butt heads in Dimension 1, struggling with their friendship a bit. Not unheard of, but probably one of the least forced examples of Sonic and Tails clashing yet. One of the biggest changes, but perhaps the most interesting, is Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow isn't part of Sonic's crew, but acts as a sort of Green Ranger to them, a wiser, more cool hero who can come in to save the day and perhaps teach them important lessons. In the series, he got trapped between the dimensions of the Shadowverse and only seems to be able to reach Sonic here and there as he travels through it. We get to see some fun action between Sonic and Shadow that I was dying to see since Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the Nintendo GameCube. What's weird about their dynamic here, however, is Shadow is acting so wise and in control, treating Sonic as if he is a constant troublemaker for not thinking things through, moving too fast. As far as the dynamic goes, it actually feels natural in the setting of the show, but their relationships are very different from the games, at least the older ones. For me, it just lands weird because Shadow is everything that Sonic is being accused of by Shadow. Shadow's introduction was as a villain trying to destroy the entire world. He nearly accomplished this until he suddenly remembers that the girl he's trying to get revenge for actually doesn't want the world destroyed, and Shadow has to turn around at the last minute and sacrifice his life to stop the evil doomsday scenario that he created. Even after this, Shadow runs right into trouble in future games. After being brought back as a robot, I guess, he gets sucked into a plot with evil aliens, and once again, damn near destroys life as we know it. Once again, he turns things around, but it is often Sonic who is the one coming in to save the day, or at least help. It just seems really weird to act like Sonic is the one making mistakes by rushing into things after Shadow rushed into destroying the entire freaking world a few times already. Considering that even Knuckles' Angel Island backstory appears to be canon in the show, it means Shadow's backstory likely is too, but what that actually means for the characters is largely ignored. Now, for those of you who are playing the more recent games, this probably isn't a big issue. Most of these characters had their personalities toned down over the course of over a decade, and their backstories largely ignored, and have become more so costumes on Sonic's superhero team of furries. Originally, Sonic was more of a one-man band, and then he was given a sidekick, Tails, but from there, these characters were never really meant to be part of Sonic's main crew, so much as be their own fully formed characters with their own journey that just so happen to align with Sonic sometimes. These days, superhero teams are really big. Even when it's not a crossover, superhero team movies tend to be more popular than standalone hero movies, as it gives more characters for people to proxy into and a team of people to feel like they're friends with instead of one man's journey to watch. So it makes sense to me that they'd continue to change Sonic in this way as well, and honestly, it's not a horrible idea. Rouge in particular I was happy to see join the team, as she felt like a solid member to round them off, with Shadow being a cool Green Ranger type character as discussed before. But so far, it's mostly been used to erase the characters' personalities, not set them up for something fun and cool like we saw with Knuckles in the Sonic anime OVA. Me personally, I hate reboots and reboot culture, but Sonic Prime is legitimately good, and despite the differences from the older games, new fans will probably not see any issue with it. And old fans will probably still love it too, honestly, which is good because the series apparently had a 24 episode order, with Volume 1 only being 8 episodes, so expect 2 more volumes in the next year or so. And if it goes well, who knows, maybe more Sonic series will become a regular thing, ones with a fun focus on plot and overarching stories like this one has. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.